yourself. Take your brother's need as the measure for your action and solve the problems of the world.
It was 2 decades ago that Maitreya foretold this economic crash.
Learn to share.
During the American presidential campaign, McCain accused Obama of wanting to redistribute the resources of the world. Hey, good idea.
There's hope in the world, despite all of the negative happenings, that there's really more hope than things to despair about.
This is why I have always been searching. In the political scene, spirituality has always been sort of put down. And if you talk about spirituality in politics, people say, what are you talking about? Be serious. The reality is not that easy. Because when you go to a spiritual world or a religious world, politics or economic world is something that you stay away from.
The message of hope that Maitreya and these masters are bringing is very powerful, obviously.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we're actually going into 1,000 years of peace. Now, it may not seem like it when you watch our TV, our TV news. But if you contact the United Nations, they will tell you that there's more peacekeepers, requests for peacekeepers in the world, there's less armed conflict, there's less people dying in armed conflict. So we are going into that, starting into that 1,000 years of peace. Where one of the keynotes for the age of Aquarius, of course, is cooperation and cohesiveness. And we're starting to see that. We've seen the unification of Germany and the fall of the Berlin Wall. We've seen apartheid come down in Africa. We saw the Pope running around apologizing to the Muslim and Catholic faiths. That is where some of those energies are coming together. This particular campaign cycle, candidates talk about reaching across the aisle, and so it is definitely a message of hope. One of the key things that Maitreya talks about is, you talked about it, feeding people, secondarily a roof over their head, education, medical.
Clean water.
Creating justice.
Yes.
Creating a playing field where we all have the basics to live. There's 30,000 people starving to death in the world.
And we're throwing out food in this country like it's going out of style. That's a really sad thing. It's not going to where it needs to go.
Exactly. It's a distribution problem. It's a not realizing that we're all connected. We're all, sparks of the divine. We're all in the same boat together.
With the world in such need, with millions starving to death in a world of plenty, humanity certainly could use some help in coming up with a plan to assure peace and the end of hunger. Some say it's in the stars, that we are at the end of one great age and at the beginning of a new age, and that this is the time for the return to earth of a great divine being. What if the Buddha or the Christ returned now to help us out of the mess we are in? What if it really happened?
I think it's going to happen within our lifetime.
We heard some rumors coming out of London that there's a man there who's a political and social leader who's talking about brotherhood and sharing all the resources of the world and ending starvation, and seems to have quite a following. Do you think it's possible that Christ or someone like that could actually come back into the modern world?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
So what do you think if somebody like that came into the world and everybody, like TV and everybody interviewed him and people realized who he was, what do you think would be the first thing he would do?
He would probably try to get all the leaders of the countries to get in one meeting and try to agree on one plan.
Using only the grain in the world, everyone could live without any sign of starvation. And yet, each year, these millions die.
There is no other cause. Learn to share. Why sit still when the world groans? When men, women, and children die in misery, cast off by their brothers, are hungry and perish needlessly.
Of goodwill all over the world have responded. But few people realize that this condition has brought Christ back into the world now.
The ideas that are put forth and the reasons why the Christ would be in the world make sense, and things do fit together. The events that are happening in the world, the interest in hunger, the concern that people have for one another that has developed over the past 5 years is just too overwhelming to not recognize it as something that is connected with something larger.
Maitreya Buddha was foretold to come now by the previous Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha.
I didn't use the word Christ, I used the word Maitreya. Maitreya Buddha. Because they're familiar to that name. So Maitreya Buddha has descended onto their plane. Satellite trade. They know the name Maitreya Buddha. In Japanese we call Miroku Bosatsu. But a lot of Buddhists also know it's a, Miroku Bosatsu is Maitreya. And so some Buddhist groups call Maitreya, some call Miroku Bosatsu.
I have read Reappearance of the Christ and have thought about it, and there's nothing that I can say that really proves it for me on an intellectual level. It's just something that in my own intuition feels right. It's felt right for me when I've listened to the messages of the Maitreya. It feels very right to me, and it's really something that I want to hear and need to hear. And if this whole thing ended up being a hoax, I don't feel that I've lost anything.
To change the world politically, socially, economically, fundamentally changed, and he will be the advocator of that political change, economic and social, fundamental change, and through a spiritual and peaceful means. And this is exactly what I have envisioned. And when I first read his message, it's like tears. I did not have any emotional reaction, and yet tears just start pouring down through my eyes. And it's like, this is what I'm here for.
Learn to share.